Won't you pray with me? God, this morning we give you thanks. We give you thanks that we can be here in your presence. God, we ask that you remind us of our saltiness, that you remind us of our light, that we may be the things that your people need to see you. God, I ask that the meditation of my lips and of all of our hearts be pleasing in your sight, our rock and our Redeemer. Amen. We talked a little bit about light in the children's message, so I want to share a little bit about saltiness with you as my welcome to the sermon moment. So when I was a kid, I looked forward to winter for all kinds of reasons. I grew up in Western New York, which means in the wintertime, we talk about snow in feet, not inches, right? The dusting of snow that we had a couple days ago, Skip and I were talking about it before church this morning, and it was like just enough so that people who have never seen snow before can say, I've seen snow now. Or for kids who haven't been around in the wintertime, it's a first snow experience. My first snow experience was probably as tall as my dad is. And my dad is a big dude. If you've not met him, he's 6'6". So we get a lot of snow. So there's one reason to look forward to the wintertime. The other reason that I looked forward to the wintertime is because my dad and my uncles were deer hunters. And with deer hunting season comes deer meat. And with deer meat comes deer jerky. Right? And my Uncle Mike has a wonderful recipe for deer jerky that has lots of salt in it. Because before salt was something to add flavor to your food, it was used to preserve food. So I tell you all of that to say that salt is not necessarily bad, right? Sometimes when we're talking about somebody who's a little moody, we call them a little salty. Or sometimes when our doctor looks at our blood count numbers or other things, they say, maybe you need to reduce the salt in your diet. But the truth is, without salt, we lose some things. Jesus says, you are salt. He says, you are light. No one lighting a lamp hides it. Admit it, now you're thinking of that song, right? Hide it under a bushel? No! I'm going to let it shine. Or if you aren't, then maybe you should be. And my poor excuse for singing might have brought it to the front of your mind. Let it shine. That's what Jesus says. Not you notice, make it shine, not shine it, but let it shine. Last week, Pastor Pedro talked to us about the Beatitudes. We were reminded that even though we often try to turn them into imperatives, to get out there and be peacemakers, to be meek, to be hungry, to be thirsty for righteousness, Jesus doesn't actually say that to us. He says them as indicatives. He is describing, not commanding. Likewise, in the verses that follow the Beatitudes, those first 12 in the beginning of the Sermon on the Mount, Jesus doesn't say, get salty. He doesn't say, light up. He says, almost as a matter of fact, you are the salt of the earth. You are the light of the world. If you're like me, maybe now you're wondering, when did that happen? When did I become salt for the earth? When did I become light for the world? I'm just me. Is it really possible that I am those things? I'm just doing my best, just looking out for me, just trying not to get trampled underfoot. Jesus wants me to shine, to give light to the whole house. See, that's the thing about light. It doesn't exist for its own sake. It isn't about getting folks to look at the light. When we try to become the focus of attention, when we take center stage, we aren't being the light. The light is there to help folks find their way. It is about shining on the path, about revealing the hazards along the way, about getting where we need to be with a minimum of detours. And salt? Well, salt on its own, for its own sake, it's not really a good thing, right? We just talked about all of the ways that it might not be so great. But as an enhancer, as a preservative, it is invaluable. In Jesus' day, it was a common practice for farmers to salt their fields, to add in the right mix of minerals to help crops grow. The word that we translate as earth is literally ground or dirt. You are the salt of the ground, the salt of the dirt. Not a fun job, maybe, but one that helps things to grow. That's our job. Not to be the center of attention, but that which helps things grow. It's not easy, and there's no question about that. It is loud and it is a loud and noisy world out there, and we might be safer just keeping our heads down. But we can't. In our scripture this morning, Jesus tells us that too. A city built on a hill cannot hide. It's a tiny little one-liner that's thrown in after the things that we remember, the big thing that we talk about the most. Even though it doesn't really fit in well. It is a reminder that we are exposed. We are the representatives of the faith, whether we want to be or not. So, because it's true that we represent Christianity, we represent this faith in God, we might as well do it well. We are the manifestation of Christ in the world today, whether we claim it or not. So why not claim it? Why not live as though Christ were alive in us? Because, friends, let me tell you, he is. That is what Jesus is saying in our gospel this morning. You are the salt of the earth. Why not help things grow? You are the light of the world. Why not help folks find their way? Why not mentor? Why not lead? Why not be what you are? A sign of Christ's presence in the world today. Get out there, Jesus says. Out there in the world, the noisy, wonderful, scary, glorious world, and let your light shine. Don't worry about being trampled underfoot. That only happens when you stop being who you are called and created to be. You are light. Let it shine. Friends, as you embark into the crazy, chaotic, noisy world, I invite you to remember that you are called and created to be the light of the world. That Jesus lives in you, that you may do things for God's glory and point others to God. May you remember that each and every day. May it be so. Amen.